Hello, folks. Um, Hi. I am John D. Ruddy here, and thought I'd give this live streaming a go. I just thought I'd pop in, see who's here. At the moment, I am working on an illustration project, and I thought that I would say hello while I'm working. Oh, loads of people saying hello already. Excellent. Um, Comrade Ace, hey mate, how are you? I am great. I'm great. I am very busy, flat out. Money man blesses my dashboard. Oh, wonderful. NetQGE. Arzu Balkis, how is Ireland? How is it in Ireland? It is really good in Ireland at the moment. The weather is quite amazing. We're having what is known as an Indian summer, where the weather has been stupidly nice. So that's good. Adrian, how's life treating you? Life is treating me well. I got married at the end of August, which was very exciting. And funnily enough, the weather now is better than it was on the day that I got married. But how and ever. Make the fall of Yugoslavia. You'll receive a lot of likes and definitely not a comment war. Well, I mean, I'd imagine it will be a potentially controversial video because there are many sides to that story. I do totally intend to do it. It's funny. The Yugoslav Wars is one of the first pieces of history that I remember. Well, obviously not experiencing myself, but like as a child, remember seeing on the news and realizing that this was a thing that was happening. I remember the 1993 Eurovision. The group from Bosnia Herzegovina were shot at as they were getting on the plane to come to, because the Eurovision was in Ireland. I'm going to fix this light to see if this might work a little bit better because I'm somewhat overexposed. There we go. I just have this wonderful Luxo lamp, which I have had for years. Let's see. Oh, there we go. I'm wonderfully blinded and overexposed, but it's fine. Oh, there we go. Can you do the Mexican Revolution? It is on the list. I have a very long list. And the thing about these is they take ages. I love doing them, but they do. They take ages. And I think the more that I do them, I become more and more of a perfectionist. Like my War of 1812 video took a long time, and I think it had close to 200 illustrations that I had to do, compared to like whenever I went back to do my World War One extended edition, where I essentially spliced in the bits and pieces from my there we go, where I essentially spliced in the 10 more facts, and I'm going to do that with my World War II at some stage. But it was funny revisiting that because the illustrations for the World War One, the original World War One video, were just so kind of sparse. And I find that I animate a lot more. Like there's more movement on the screen, so I end up with more and more frames in my videos. Obviously, I mean it's not 24 frame animation, not even 18. It's so simple. But yeah, the coolest history channel ever. We love you, from Hima Doha. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I do my best to try and keep history as fun and entertaining as possible, because the way that I see it, history is way too important to be boring. So I try to make it as not boring as possible. Connor O'Grady, how did you get your awesome style, John? And would you ever do the Battle of the Somme in great detail, because it has a huge part in my family history? Yeah, I've been I've been thinking about doing videos that are maybe shorter in length and thusly shorter in production. So, because I remember like my shortest history video is probably uh, um, my shortest video is probably the Cuban Missile Crisis in 5 minutes. And I think I might go back to doing some shorter bits like that and to be able to focus on something that was relatively brief. Yeah, of course, the Battle of the Somme was like what, 3 4 months, and it was insane. I actually just watched. Where is it? Where do I have it? Oh no, it's on my DVD. These are my DVDs and a little Darth Vader in the corner. This is my office, by the way. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely want to go and do some more stuff. Let's see who else. You're the reason I took history in high school. I love it so far. My teacher is absolutely amazing, and your videos help a lot. Thank you so much. You're most welcome. I'm glad that I can help people get into history. Um, I when I was growing up, I had a real love hate relationship with history. I found the bits that I loved growing up were the likes the ancient Romans, ancient Greeks, all those kind of ancient civilizations. And then once I kind of found that it's you started getting into the 19th and then into the 20th century, I found it got really boring. And maybe part of it was uh, part of it was oh, I've lost my trail of thought now. But yeah, I part of it was I suppose more and more of the pictures in the book, more and more of the pictures in the book were black and white photos as opposed to illustrations. Obviously, further back you go, they're full color illustrations, full color um, uh, photographs of artifacts. But then once you start getting into the 19th and 20th century, early 20th century, it's more and more black and white photos. And I suppose that's another reason, partially, why I do what I do, where I'm trying to make it bring everything into color and kind of sometimes I'll reproduce photos in color because quite often you'll have some very famous photos and they're in black and white. Um, there's some fabulous art by I can't remember her name. She is on Twitter, probably on Instagram now actually, and she colorizes photos from history, and she's absolutely amazing. Because that's one of the tricky things whenever you are colorizing something is working out what the right colors are. Usually it's quite straightforward. But yeah, speaking of that, that's why I was drawing attention to my DVDs and linking back to the Psalm was I recently rewatched was it They Shall Not Grow Old, the Peter Jackson documentary. Highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it. Hold on, actually, I'll get it. Oh, there we go. And there we go. They shall not grow old, and it is an amazing film that was put together by Peter Jackson and his team down in New Zealand. They basically took old archive footage and restored it and fixed the frame rate. Fixed the frame rate and colorized it, and then added a soundscape to it. So they added all the sound effects, they did all the Foley, all the body movement, and of course the voices. They used forensic. They used forensic lip readers to look at to work out what people were saying. So it was really interesting. Hold on a minute. Something going on in the chat. Hang on a minute. Some spammers, guys. Stop spamming on the chat. There's no need for spamming. Let's see. I've got a question, unlikely request for you. Would you consider collaborating with YouTubers like Overly Sarcastic Productions, Oversimplified History, and Extra History Series on extra credits? Yes, I'd love to do collaborations. Yeah, absolutely. I was recently at Worldcon. Ben Bruder, just calm down, please. Um, Yeah, I was recently working at Worldcon it was on in Dublin. So it was fantastic. It was really really fun. I was there. I was supporting. Well, supporting. I well, I was. I was. Uh, Lindsay Ellis, one of my favorite YouTubers, had been nominated for an award, for a Hugo Award. Herself and Angelina had been nominated for some fantastic documentary work that they did on The Hobbit. Um, and so I was there kind of initially just kind of waving the yay, go you guys. But then at the same time, I was also hosting a table of John D. Ruddy and Man merchandise. So it was a lot of fun. But through that, I met a lot of really fun and interesting people. I met Lindsay and Angelina, and they're wonderful people. They're really nice. I met H Bomber Guy. He's a really cool guy. Um, yeah, I met loads of fun people. I met Will Simpson. I met so many, so many, so many. I stood behind George R. R. Martin on the escalator leaving the convention center, which was quite surreal. And I was like, "Congratulations on your work, well done." And he was like, "Thank you very much." I was like, "I'm not going to be that guy to tell him to write more books because George R. R. Martin, work away at your own pace. I understand the when people are like, when are you doing the next one? It's like it'll be done when it's done. So my next video will be done when it's done, guys. Let's see. I don't get females personality, but majority less looking nice guys get rejected. Hmm. Well, I mean, it isn't all about looks. I'll just say that. Are you familiar with Paul and Ball Somber? Lots of history of comics there that are not that popular. Must check it out. 30 Years War. Waits for the new video. Yeah, that's fair enough. Ghost Tracker too. Say hello to Sean from Dublin there, like good lad, please. How are you, Sean Healy from Dublin? I don't know. Are you from the north side or the south side? So I suppose I could say hello like this, and I suppose I could also say hello like this. Although this is quite a terrible south side accent. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, hi from Texas, from Jesse Torres. Hello, Jesse. I have never been to Texas. I'd love to go. I would like to confirm that Healy Rays of Kerry watch your content. No way, really? That's hilarious. Well, hopefully I can keep them informed. Maybe I should do a video about climate change and inform them a little bit more. That's quite interesting. For anyone who doesn't know, the Healy Rays are a political dynasty in Ireland. They're some politicians down in County Kerry, which is a beautiful county down in the southwest, and the Healy Rays, their father, and now his two sons are politicians, and they've been known for climate change denial, and they've kind of been stereotyped as these, simple-minded farmer types, which is slightly unfair, but at the same time, there are certain things that they come out with and certain things that they say that don't really work towards them. So yeah, maybe yeah. Well, if they watch my video, if you're watching right now, guys, hi, hello from Donegal, and climate change is real. It's happening. Hello from Detroit, Michigan. Oh, Detroit. I haven't been to Detroit, but I was very interested to explore the history of Detroit in the War of 1812. I hope you watched that video. I'd imagine you did. Hi from a fellow Celt in Wales. Oh wow, James Blight, what part of Wales are you from? I drove the whole length and breadth of Wales a couple of weeks ago for my honeymoon. It was wonderful. I went, where did I go? Got the ferry over from Dublin and went to, where did I go? Well, obviously drove across Anglesey, up through Snowdonia. Snowdonia is amazing. The mountains there are just phenomenal. Did a big massive zip line across. You can see some of this stuff on my Instagram. If you go and find John D. Ruddy on Instagram, go find it. But yeah, where did we go? We went all around Snowdonia and then down, stayed in a hobbit hole outside of Brecon, and went to Pembrokeshire, to Pembroke Castle, where Henry VII was born, which was really interesting, and that was where Strongbow left for Ireland in the beginning of the Norman invasion of Ireland. I always find it interesting, just always finding links with Irish history where I can. You may have noticed in some of my videos, I'll see if I can shoehorn Ireland in somewhere. Let's see. Congratulations on getting married. Can you do a history of Texas video? Where are the Six Flags states? So there is a lot of history there. Yeah, I'd be very interested in doing that. I mean, I've touched on it a little bit just in my Presidents of the United States video. That was actually a really interesting three-parter to do, particularly the first part, because in as much it was the story of the presidents, in a lot of ways you captured a lot of the story of the United States as well, even though it was focusing on the presidents. But through that you could see the United States spreading across North America, which I found quite fascinating. John, can you please tell about your education history and whether you were always into history? Well, my background is actually Bob Bills, greetings from County Donegal. Well, I'm in County Donegal. Hi. Oh, there we go. There's my markers. Well, my background is education. I trained originally as a primary school teacher, or an elementary school teacher, as is known in North America. And I worked as a substitute teacher for years. But always was kind of doing this stuff in the background, and this stuff eventually just kind of took over, and it got bigger and bigger, and it's been a lot of fun to do. What else? But yeah, what got me into history? It was actually through teaching history in the classroom that I kind of rediscovered history and rediscovered my love of history. So and it was through that I was just kind of telling the stories, and I was like, I want to make a video about this. And so I'd been drawing Maniman since I was 14 years old, and so Maniman was the perfect little vehicle to do. So let me see. How about the video about the Korean War for the 70th anniversary since it started, which is next year? Greetings from Bulgaria. Oh, that's a good one. I always do try to tie into anniversaries where I can, although I'm raging that I missed two massive anniversaries this year. I mean, the year's not over yet. I could still do it, but I do have a lot of different projects on. But two things that I really want to do: I'd love to do the space race, because we had the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, which was quite amazing. And then there's also the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. So that would be one. It'd be very interesting to do. I haven't done a lot on LGBT rights at all, so that would be a very interesting thing to look at through LGBT history, particularly giving it the 50th anniversary. Let's see. Got two more questions for you. Could there be any possibility of a video on the 7 Years' War? And have you heard of alternate history? Also, I'm Seth. Greetings from Britain. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of wars that I can do. The reason why I tend to do wars more than any other kind of thing is because wars more often than not have a beginning, middle, and end, so they're quite easy to tell the story of, as opposed to, say, if I were to do a video on the Renaissance, it's like, where do you start, where do you finish? Obviously, there are places, but and that's a lot of stuff to go. It would be very, very what's the word? Very generalized in a lot of ways. Let's see. I got an idea, John. How about a video on the rise of Nazi Germany? That is definitely a video that I want to do. I mean, obviously, I've touched on it in. Who was that from? That was from Look Nile. Yeah, that's definitely a video that I want to do, particularly just given the political climate that we're in at the moment. It's important to see how these things can happen and how these people can just stumble into these things. There's a powerful sculpture monument memorial in Berlin of the Holocaust, and it's really, really powerful. It's hundreds of thousands of these columns, and these big, massive, massive columns. And whenever you walk towards it, the columns are flat on the pavement, and they're just these like tiles along the ground. But the ground goes deeper into it, and the columns start rising. So as you're walking down, it's this entire grid of columns, and before you know it, you're completely surrounded, and they're 8-9 feet in the air, and you're looking up, and you're completely deep surrounded by it, and all of us, and in every direction you look, you're just surrounded by these columns, and it's a powerful depiction of just how you can very quickly be neck deep in insanity. And I think that would be a powerful video to do, the rise of Nazi Germany. So that is something. Yeah, no, that's definitely on the cards. But when is the question? Or like when I'll get the time to do it. That being said, I at the moment I've been looking to do more on Patreon, and to really improve and increase my my place on Patreon. I mean, I've had Patreon for years, and thank you to everyone who has supported me on Patreon these last years. I've been doing it on a per video basis because I don't necessarily have a video out every month. I've been contemplating on changing that to per month, and potentially then having more resources to produce these videos, and having more incentive to produce these videos. But yeah, it's something that I have been planning to improve upon, if I can. And if anyone has any requests of what would be good things to do through Patreon, please let me know. I'm open to suggestion. Let's see. There is a character on the wall behind you. Who is that? Oh, up there. Of all the characters that I have on my wall, it's Oliver Cromwell. He's constantly staring down back at me. No, that was a prop, or it was a prop that we ended up not using, and it ended up in my office, from my play Many Man Does the History of Ireland on Stage. 70 minutes, insane roller coaster. Myself and a very talented actor, Louise Conaghan. She is one of the funniest people I know. The two of us tell the story of Irish history in 70 minutes, and there were all sorts of like different cut out swords and guns. And initially Oliver Cromwell was going to be this little figure that we would hold out, but then eventually I embodied Cromwell himself and kind of turned him into Godzilla a little bit, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, so that's Oliver Cromwell. Oliver Cromwell and Darth Vader. Spot the difference. Let's see. By the way, the Healy Rays introduced me to your contest. Sorry for the junior shirt. They gave me a recommendation of your channel. Well, thank you very much, Healy Rays. And Retro CD Gaming. I hope it went well. By the way, I love I love just the Retro CD Gaming. I love your logo there, the old classic PS1 logo. One of my favorite nostalgic sounds, and it never ceases to just fill me with nostalgia, is a PS1 booting up and just that was nowhere near what it sounds like, but it's magic. I think because it's the only console that I didn't own so much when I was a kid. Like, I mean, I had a Sega Mega Drive, or a Sega Genesis for all you North Americans. But I had a Sega Mega Drive, and then I had a Nintendo 64, and then I had a GameCube. And so I missed out on the PS1, and then I later bought a PS2, so I was able to get back. But I played the PS1 in my friend's house, so like a couple of different friends, particularly Jared, over in Jared's bedroom. Good times. What was it? Theme Hospital. It's Tomb Raider. No, I played Tomb Raider on the Saturn more than I played it on the PS2. But no, what games? Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Armored Core and Bloody Roar, and most of them were demos because we were cheap like that. But yeah, no, then when I was kind of in my later teens, like 17, 18, one of my friends started feeding me all of the old PS1 games that I missed, like Metal Gear Solid, one of my favorite. Some of you guys may have, some of you may have noticed some of my Metal Gear Solid references throughout my videos. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid, and then Final Fantasy 7 and 9. And I love Final Fantasy 7, but I hold a very special place for Final Fantasy 9. I love the game so much. I replayed it last year, and it holds up, and I love it. I think I actually even preferred it second time around. It was so good. PS2, great system. It is a great system. John, why do people say Julius Caesar is the last of the Republicans? I will approach that in a later video. While not a specific event, have you ever considered a video on the history of the Atlantic Triangle African slave trade? Yeah, that would be very interesting. Yeah, it is. It is something. As I said before, things with a beginning, middle, and end tend to work better for my videos. But that being said, it's a very massively important piece of history to tell, and it's something that should be clarified and should be, shown up for what it is. It was horrendous and terrible. There we go. Sean Healy is snake. That's actually the ringtone. I'm like, well, no, it's not snake, and that would be the worst ringtone ever. But no, the ringtone on my phone is actually the codec calling. So anytime I get a phone call, and all I can think is, Colonel, what do you mean a ladder? Final Fantasy 9 is amazing. It is, Rooster Clock. It is. What about the Armagh rail disaster of 1889? Oh, I need to look more into that. Have you seen Alternate History Hubs? Recent video on Afghanistan. No, I have not seen Alternate History Hubs. I haven't seen that series, so I should. Yeah, no, I find alternate history is fascinating. There's all sorts of kind of what ifs and buts and different things like that. Let us see. 1930s to 1990s Irish history would improve viewership in exam season. Yes, it would. And also, what you should check out is Manny Man Does the History of Ireland in book form. It is available through Gill. If you want to check out, go to gill.com or gill.ie and Google John D. Ruddy, and you'll find my two books. I have Manny Man Does the History of Ireland and Manny Man Does Revolutionary Ireland, 1916 to 1923. So there's loads of stuff there. But yeah, no, I definitely want to do more videos on that. Hello, John. Hey, can you do a video on the Mexican-American War and the Spanish-American War, please? Thanks. Yeah, it's on the very long list. And it's something that I would love to. That was James K. Polk, wasn't it? I do believe. What's your favorite history channel on YouTube, except yours, of course? What is my favorite history channel? Oh, I really enjoy the guy. Oh God, what's it called now? Is it History Buffs? I think it's History Buffs. The guy he watches movies and then essentially goes through it for historical accuracy or inaccuracy, as it may turn out. Yeah, that would be one of my favorites. Knowing Better is also, I mean, he's not specifically a history channel, but he does a lot of great bits of history in there. I would watch more so kind of more like Philosophy Tube would be one of my main ones that I would watch. I love Philosophy Tube. I love ContraPoints. I have been binging H Bomber Guy while I've been drawing a very detailed map of Dublin, which has been a lot of fun, which you can see a preview of on my Instagram. Go and follow. Let's see. Hi, how are you? And question, ever thinking of doing the 80-year war of Dutch against the Spanish? I'll put it on the list. John D. Ruddy should meet Mr. Terry History. Yeah, sure, why not? No joke, I discovered your channel when I was in college, and one of your videos helped me study for and pass an exam on the Cold War. Excellent. I'm glad I could help. Jesse Torres. Let's see. Can you do a video about the war if the bucket, like oversimplified it? Oh, War of the Bucket. Could be done. Let me see. Interesting one. Chernobyl. Oh, that would be a very interesting one to do. Yes. Retro CD gaming. Yes, absolutely. Would you do a video on Soviet history? Well, yeah. For anyone who watched my Russian Revolution video, I very much kind of set up the Russian Civil War. So, I mean, that'll be the next one in that line. You may notice I do tend to do that. I'll quite often set up another video. Like the Vietnam War video, I had been setting up and hinting at since my World War II video. Yeah, like in World War II, there's some vague reference to French Indochina, and someone was like, oh, isn't that called Vietnam? And I was, oh, don't go there yet. But then the end of my Cuban Missile Crisis video set up Vietnam War, and it was constantly setting it up. And then the Cold War video came, and it was also looking at it, also hinting towards it, and gave a little taste of it. But eventually, I got around to doing it last year. Although I'd love to do more on that history as well. It was fascinating to research. Let's see. What about doing a video on the history of John D. Ruddy? Well, that would be a little bit self-indulgent. DMC is all the history you need. Oh yeah, the Limerick Soviet. Yes, absolutely. I'd love. Did I mention? Yeah, I mentioned the Limerick Soviet in my War of Independence video. It's fascinating. The city of Limerick turned into a little communist Soviet in 1919. It was around March, April 1919. It was the 100th anniversary of it there a couple of months ago. And it was, yeah, they were this little independent thing. Well, essentially, the British had closed off all the corners of the city as a punishment for us rebels, and they said, "Well, fine, we will." Because the Russian Revolution had only just happened a couple of years prior, so they were like, "Well, we're going to set up the Limerick Soviet," and so they did. John D. Ruddy, how about a video on the Celtic areas? Yes, yes, I want to do a video on the Celts because, it's Ireland. And well, I mean, not just Ireland. I mean, we've got the Scots, the Welsh, the Manx, the Cornish, and the Breton. And if I have left anybody else out, I will be seeing it very quickly in the comments. No, the Celts, very proud of Celtic culture and Celtic heritage here in Ireland, and of course the Celtic language of Irish. There are 6 Celtic languages, as far as I know, off the top of my head. But yeah, ta cúpla focal Gaeilge agam. Well, I have more than just cúpla focal. For anyone who was like, "What did he just say?" I can sort of speak Irish, more or less what I said. I have a couple of words of Irish, is what I said. What program do you use to make your videos, like editing software and art program? Oh wow. I hand draw all of my stuff. I use Pro Markers. This is just one. These are just some of my blues. I have a whole wonderfully color coded. Yeah, no. So I hand draw all the Maniman stuff, and then I edit them on between GIMP and Paintbrush. Sometimes Paintbrush can be just as straightforward. Or Microsoft Paint. Paintbrush has been called Paintbrush since probably Windows 95, has it? It's Microsoft Paint now, John. And what else? And then yeah, I edit the Maniman videos on Windows Movie Maker. Sorry to disappoint all the editing snobs out there, but Windows Movie Maker does exactly the job for that, because it's so straightforward because my videos are essentially a photo presentation rather than video, because it's a case of just each frame, and I individually just type in how long each frame lasts for. So Windows Movie Maker is actually the more user friendly for that, and it's really straightforward. Obviously, if I'm doing actual like live action video stuff, I would be more prone towards Adobe Premiere. But that's I should maybe do more live action stuff. I could. What would you think of that? Would you like more live action stuff? Can you make history of decolonization of African Asia? Oh yes. Wouldn't necessarily do one general one. If I were to do one, I would do a series of maybe specific ones. But then again, it's more on my ever-growing list. Let's see. I hate to repeat a comment of mine. Repeat away if I haven't read it. But I would highly recommend Alternate History Hub, or Cody for short. The guy makes some really good videos that get the gears in your head going. Must check it out. Kimru. Welsh, bit of Welsh there. Good man. I was really interested to history of game consoles. That could be that would be a very self-indulgent one, that one. But I suppose, I mean, it is history in its own right. But no, speaking of Kimro there, James Blight, I was really interested in discovering a lot of the links between the Irish language and Welsh. Obviously, they're both Celtic languages, but they're of the two different families of Welsh language or of Celtic languages. But I was interested that there were certain words that were the same, like Lynn is like lake, and it's the same in Ireland. It's like a pool, or Lynn pool, which is where Dublin gets its name. Funnily enough, Dublin is Dublin Blackpool, but not that Blackpool. Yeah, I was quite interested. Because do as well, I think, or dove in, or something to that effect in Welsh is also is also black. There were certain words that were similar. Let's see. Unlike the Romans, the Celts didn't water their wine and were said by some to be quite drunk and rowdy. The Romans even commented that the long, thick moustaches of the Celtic men acted as strainers. That still happens to me, funnily enough, although I don't drink alcohol. Apparently, there are some reports that the Romans were also quite afraid of redheads, which may explain why they didn't invade Ireland or Scotland. Although I would imagine they probably came to Ireland on a really bad day because they called it Hibernia, the land of winter, and were like left it at that. So who's to know? How did you get into history videos? The first history video that I did, oh god, I'm doing my history voiceover voice. The first history video that John D. Ruddy did was blah 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 blah. The first history video that I did was in 2000. Well, no, actually, I tell a lie. 2012 was the first Man video that I did, and it was Donegal, my home county, was in the All Ireland final of Gaelic football, and it was, and they were heading towards the final, and it was also the 75th anniversary of the publication of The Hobbit, of which I am a massive fan. And so I ended up combining the All Ireland Donegal final with The Hobbit. And the Hobbit movie was just coming out that December as well, so I was super excited about those movies. And so I did a video combining that, which was I think that's still available on my channel. There are certain videos now that are private now that are no longer, because my YouTube channel itself is old. It's from when I was about 16. It's one of the older channels out there, which is why I think the my channel name is still Rod the Spud. Can't change that. But yeah, that was my kind of first unofficial one. But then my first official history video was in 2013, where I did a video about Irish history. Manny Man does the history of Ireland, and that went viral around Ireland. And so I thought, let's try one of more international interest. So I did World War One, and of course this was the start of 2014, which is the beginning of the centenaries of World War One. So it was kind of perfect timing in that regard, and that just really quickly allowed me to build a viewership, and more, because the first couple of videos went viral, and then the rest of my videos have just kind of seemed to grow organically through Compost, through subscribers like you guys. Thank you so much. Let's see. Otto von Steinberg Tag. How about make a video about when the Normans invaded Wessex or England? Oh, the Norman invasion. Yes, definitely. It's on the list. I've been tempted to do a video about the War of the Roses, actually. There's one for you. Talking about Anglo-Saxons. That'd be cool. Germany invaded everyone. Every country invaded. Well, so many countries. And I wonder actually, like, how many, if there are any countries or any places that have not invaded somewhere else in some shape or form. Because I mean, like the Scots are actually descended from Ireland. Which is why Scots Gaelic is actually, it came from Ireland. So the Scots are technically of Irish descent, because the Picts were the group before there. The Scots are actually descended of an old Irish thing. Let's see. How about do the Irish-German plan about getting supplies for the Rising as well as the Easter Rising's history? Well, I've done a video about the Easter Rising, and I've touched on that plan, but with Roger Casement. I would love to do more. Roger Casement is a very interesting figure in Irish history. German history is always interesting too. Hello, Mr. Ruddy. Ruddy at the History Army. Well, you're missing a D there. It's Ruddy, not Rudy. Uh, did I don't understand that language. Um, hey, John, have you ever considered making a video about Wales? Quite a funny story about their name. I would love to, particularly having visited there. I loved visiting. I was at Conwy Castle, Pembrokeshire, Pembroke Castle, and Carnarvon Castle, and I'd love to do a video about all of those. It would be fascinating, really, really interesting. I found it interesting actually. At Carnarvon Castle, they managed to hold off an entire Welsh and French army with like about 28 soldiers inside. It was just so well designed, which was quite fascinating. Here's an interesting video idea: the Frankish kingdom. Yes, please. Besides, I said Germanic, not German. Oh, okay. Have you made a video on Italian reunification? No, but I could. Is it Is it known as reunification or is it unification? I suppose. I mean, it was unified under Rome, like millennia ago. Well, like, would it be reunification? Then again, that's the same question about Ireland, for example, where some people kind of talk about Irish reunification or unification. It's like, well, that's kind of been a bit of a question. Has Ireland ever truly been united in the past? Technically, the only time Ireland has actually been like properly united was under the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland in 1801. Before that, it was, well, I mean, it was like there were always kind of spaces. I suppose the Kingdom of Ireland was a unified kingdom, but it was a kingdom that was under the English crown. So it is a very interesting question. What was Ireland ever truly united in the past? But hey, what do y'all think? All that Brexit stuff going on at the moment, it's crazy. Oh no, he mentioned the war. Let's see. And then the Welsh weren't Irish at all. I think we see Ireland and Scotland as brothers. Yay. Are you planning on doing a video about the Troubles? I never even thought about Irish history, and well, you sure made my head spin and look into. I have done one video about it. It was it was in cahoots with Queen's University. I did a brief history of the Troubles of the North. Although I would love to revisit that because that was one of my very early videos, and I think I could do something a lot better and tell the story a lot better. Let's see. I've got another question regarding possible future videos. Are you considering doing a video on the British Empire? Yeah, absolutely. Where to begin and where to end and where to, if I were doing a video about the British Empire, yeah. I mean, what did the British ever do for us? The aqueducts. Oh, of course, the aqueducts, but of course, but besides the roads and the great buildings, and but yeah, no, the British Empire would be a very interesting video. Would you do a video on the history of religion in Ireland? I could do. Yeah. I mean, there are certain topics that I would tend to not get into as much per se. I suppose, like, I mean, I suppose I could do, the thing about religion is just there's certain aspects of it, certain I suppose there's any kind of biases in any kind of story that one tells. But it would be very interesting, particularly Ireland is a very interesting history with regards religion and who was what. Can you do something about the recent Syrian civil war? I'm always hesitant on doing something that is relatively current because it is liable to change or it is liable to date very quickly. And the Syrian civil war isn't over yet, and so whatever I would do, it would be out of date by the very, very shortly. Like even if you look at my Cold War video, for example, that was released, I think, what, 2014, and at the end of it, we're speculating about what or the world didn't have two opposing superpowers anymore, and so what um, history would stagnate or politics would stagnate. And it's interesting because that is exactly what happened. So in that way, it's kind of dated quite well. But like when you look at the little references there, they're like, so who are we fighting now? Like Ebola, because Ebola was the big talking point in 2014. But it is interesting. There's certain things that date and certain things that remain kind of timeless. But that's one reason why I tend to avoid doing, like, people have been asking, to do if I do a video on Brexit, but it ain't over yet. So maybe if there is an end to it per se, I could do a video on it. One can hope. Let's see. Hi, John. Been a fan for a year now, so keep up the good work. PS, can you do the Roman Empire? I could, indeed. What do you think about Boris Johnson and/or Brexit? That's a loaded question. What do you think about Boris Johnson and/or Brexit? Well, as I've said before, I live in County Donegal, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is right up in the northwest of Ireland. And hold on a minute, I'm going to illustrate my point here. Of course, I have pages in front of me. There we go. Where's my pens? These are all my pens. Okay. Don't mind me. I'm just drawing a stupidly quick map of Ireland, and that is my stupidly quick drawn map of Ireland. And here you have Northern Ireland here. So I live here in Donegal. And Donegal, as you can see, is actually Ireland's most northerly county, despite it being in the south. And Donegal shares most of its border with Northern Ireland. And so if Brexit were to happen, and particularly a no-deal Brexit, where a hard border goes up, then most of the border with Donegal is up against most of the border of Donegal is up against Northern Ireland. Like I live literally 20 minutes away from the border, the international border, Hesterban. But yeah, and so that would be really annoying. If I want to drive to my capital city from Donegal down to Dublin, I cross the border twice. There is one road from Clonus to, is it Clonus to Virginia or Clonus to Cavan, I think. That like you start in Northern Ireland, go into the south, and then into the north again for a mile, and then into the south again for a mile, and then into the north again for a mile, and then into the south. It's insane, and how they would manage that border, I have no idea. But yeah, so I have very, very, very personal feelings about Brexit, and particularly that it's going to affect us. It's going to affect Ireland very badly, but it's going to affect Donegal in particular very badly. And we didn't have a vote in it because we're not in the United Kingdom. And yet, so there's been a lot of echoes of the past with regards decisions being made in London and decisions being made in the Westminster Parliament which are affecting Ireland. So yeah. Who knows? In your opinion, what's the weirdest history you've studied? Oh, what's the weirdest history I've studied? Oh, what is weird? French Revolution had some really weird corners, actually. Just how they went from constitution to constitution to constitution. Like that was a big reason why I did that French Revolution video. Was it was because a lot of people tend to go, okay, so France had a revolution and they executed the king and then they had a republic, and it was a lot more complicated than that. Yeah, I found a lot of their real attempts at real hardcore social change were really interesting. Like the what was it, where they completely rearranged the calendar, rearranged the week. I think they did, which resulted in people having less holidays. So that didn't stick, but it was quite interesting. Well, Napoleon managed to introduce the metric system later on, which was a good thing. Let's see. Just give Derry Tyrone for my back to Ireland. Oh yeah, good old Derry. John, do you have any advice of doing a book? Because I'm doing a book about a murder mystery in London during the Victorian era. Don't edit as you write. They are two very different modes of working. Get it all out. Whenever when you're in writing mode, get it all out. Just write. Get it out. The way that I look at it, you're in writing, and the same can be going for anything, for any kind of planning for a film. When you're shooting something, or when you're writing something, you're creating the ball of clay, and then once you start editing it, then you're sculpting that clay. So that would be my main advice. And believe in yourself, believe in the story, and if you have a publisher or not, chance your arm. Send it to as many people as possible once it's done. Once you're happy with it, write for yourself. And if you enjoy it, then someone else will enjoy it too. And go from there. It sounds interesting, sounds intriguing, sounds very mysterious. Let's see. I'm going to have to go soon, but let's see. Hello, John. How are you been? I are been fine. Thank you very much. Finally got your books in Four Masters in Donegal Town. Oh, excellent. Glad you got them there, Philip. Philip Boyle. Thoughts on Michael Collins? Is he overrated or a true hero? I am one to think he is a bit of a hero. I very much kind of land on his side with regards the Civil War debate of, I mean, he wasn't perfect. Nobody was perfect in history. Every single person in history is flawed, because every single person in history is a person, and every single person is flawed. And that is one of the dangers that everybody falls into. Everybody just deifies people, particularly in history, where they treat it like sports teams, and where they're like, oh well, my side did all the good and your side did all the bad. It's like, no. Like, both sides did a lot of stuff over the history, but you need to accept when your side has done wrong and when the other side has not. When Southerners say that, Democrats started the KKK, for example, it's like, well, yeah, technically they did, but then you refuse to accept that there was an entire political flip in the 1960s. But I'm getting completely off topic here. Michael Collins. Yeah, I mean, he got as good a deal as he was going to get. Like, I find that very funny with Theresa May. Some of you might have noticed the joke in my War of Independence video when Michael Collins comes back from the UK and he's like, guys, this is as good as a deal as we're getting from these guys. The parallels between him coming back to an unhappy cabinet and Theresa May coming back from Brussels time and again with as good a deal as she was going to get. I just found it very quite ironic and entertaining in an ironic way. But yeah, it was as good as Ireland was going to get at that time. We were not getting a 32 county Ireland. We were not getting a 32 county Irish Republic. And I just thought that I just found Dev was very manipulative of the whole situation. I found it very convenient that after all the fighting was said and done, he was the major political player left alive. Like, obviously there were others. I mean, you had William Cosgrave and whatnot, but say the likes of Arthur Griffith's death was a tragedy. He died of stress, essentially. Essentially, obviously, it was more complicated than that. But Arthur Griffith and Michael Collins didn't make it through the Civil War, and so obviously, it is much more complicated than that. But the thing that frustrates me the most is that Collins was suggesting that the Irish Free State would be a stepping stone to achieve freedom, and that he was suggesting that we could use the Irish Free State as a vehicle to eventually achieve the Republic. And that's what De Valera ultimately did in the 1930s. That's what frustrates me about the whole thing, is that Dev ultimately did what Collins was suggesting in the first place, but after an entire brutal civil war. So yeah, so I am want to come down on Michael Collins' side in that regard. But as I said, nobody is perfect in history. Michael Collins did organize the assassination of several people. Like, obviously it was war, but that's nobody is perfect. Let's see. You need to do the timeline of the Soviet Union. I do. Let's see. You're quoting my history teacher. There you go. Awesome. Thanks. Oh, there it is. There you go. Okay. Let's see. Naples. Is that someone from Naples? Let's see. I'll answer a couple more questions, and then I am going to leave you to it. But let's see. Everything would have been sorted itself out if Home Rule just waited to get. Oh, if Ireland just waited to get Home Rule. Oh, yes, everything would have sorted itself out in Ireland if Ireland just waited to get Home Rule in 1914. That's an interesting point, and there's an element of truth to that. So, for anyone who doesn't know, in 1914, Home Rule was voted in. Irish Home Rule was voted in. Of course, at this point, Ireland was ruled from the British Parliament in London, in Westminster, and Home Rule had been gaining support all throughout the 1880s, 1890s, 1900s, and 1914 came, and Home Rule was voted in. But in 1912, I just broke my cardinal rule. I always try and tell a story in chronological order. Didn't do it. So 1912, the guys, unionists in what is now essentially Northern Ireland, or mostly, unionists in Ulster and Dublin. Actually, Dublin was particularly unionist. South Dublin was really unionist. But they were all in favour of remaining a part of the union, and they kicked up such a fuss. They signed the Ulster Covenant, pledging to go to war if necessary. What's his name? Carson, Edward Carson. He was from Dublin. He was born on, was it? Oh, where was it? It's just up the road from where Teachas na Gaeilge is now, or not Teachas na Gaeilge, Conradh na Gaeilge is now. Oh, where is it? Is it Harcourt Street? I think it's Harcourt Street. But or somewhere down that end of the city. But yeah, so like one of the leaders of unionism was from Dublin, but yeah, so they had kicked up such a fuss, and they started running guns into the country and set up the Ulster Unionists or the Ulster Volunteers in 1913. So by the time Home Rule was voted in 1914, and so Ireland was on the brink of civil war, because in response to, I've broken my rule again, in response to the Ulster Volunteers, volunteers setting up, the Irish volunteers were set up, and so both sides in Ireland were running guns into the country, and they were on the brink of civil war. But then World War One broke out, and the rest is history, as I say. Well, because with World War One breaking out, then Home Rule was put on hold, and in that uncertainty, a small minority of the Irish volunteers, not a lot of them. It was, I think, you had 18,000 went off to fight in. I'm maybe getting these numbers slightly wrong, but I think 18,000 of the Irish volunteers went off to fight in the trenches, and about 2,000 got involved in what became the Easter Rising, and that changed Irish politics forever. But it would have been interesting to see what would have happened had World War One not broken out. Some reckon that if the Ulster Volunteers had gone ahead with their plan and went to war, they would have found themselves at war with the British, because the British Army would have to enact British law. And very quickly, I would imagine that the Ulster Volunteers would lose their political support from whichever folks were backing them across the UK. So, yeah, again, going into alternate history, what's the ifs and buts, who's to know? But let me have a look, and I'll do a couple more. My comments aren't scrolling. Oh, there we go. Are they scrolling? There we go. Shouldn't have executed the Easter Rising leaders. Again, yeah, that was another big mistake that, who was it? General Sir John Maxwell? Yes, I think it was General Sir John Maxwell. Yeah, he had to have his blood, and he executed the leaders, and it was politically, it was a stupid idea, and he turned them into murders. Let's see. Ever heard what happened to the people who volunteers for the British in World War II that were Irish? Yeah, that would be a very interesting story to tell, because for years they were, they weren't treated very well in Ireland, because a lot of Irish people were going, well, what are you doing going off fighting for the British? It's like, well, we're fighting against the Nazis, so who's to know? Blackadder was the general. Blackadder was the comedy show from the 1980s. General Blackadder was also, he presided over the courts martial. The correct plural for court martial is not court martials, it's courts martial. But yeah, he presided over the courts martial. But it was Sir John Maxwell who, yeah, actually, I'm not sure then, was it, well, Sir John Maxwell was the general who was essentially in charge of Ireland and that kind of martial law. So yeah, it was kind of between the two of them, wasn't it? But I think it was Maxwell that kind of had the final say in executing them. Well, I mean, he didn't stop them from being executed, so well, he did eventually after Asquith, the British Prime Minister, came over and said, "Would you stop?" The time frame for it is insane, though, because like the fighting ended on the Saturday, and I think it was like the following Tuesday that Patrick Pearse and Thomas Clark and Thomas MacDonagh were executed. Like, it was only a couple of days afterwards. And then I think it was just over the space of 12 days, you had the 1st, 3rd of May, 4th of May, 5th of May, 8th of May, 12th of May, I think were the dates that they were executed. James Connolly and I think Sean McDermott were executed on the last day, I think. Serious question. What made Bobby Sands resort to hunger strike? He wasn't the first person to go on hunger strike. Hunger strike was something that was employed even in the Irish War of Independence and before that. It was it was um, it was the conditions, it was the political climate at the time. It was what they did. I suppose in a similar way to the way Patrick Pearse kind of recognized that a sacrifice had to be made. Not that I necessarily agree with that. Not that I necessarily agree with that view, but that was kind of part of the idea. Was this was a sacrifice to the cause, and they lived by it and they died by it. They're very fascinating. There's a brilliant film actually called Hunger, starring Michael Fassbender as Bobby Sands, and very good film. You should check it out. Okay, right, nearly finished. Oh, is that Hebrew? I think is that Hebrew from Shbibas. I think that's Hebrew. I'm not sure. Okay, folks. Let me see. One more thing. Could you make a video on Russo-Japanese War? Love your work, by the way. Yeah, it would be something that obviously, I haven't said no to any of these. It's like, no, I'm not doing that one. Yeah, it's on the ever-growing list. That was the one that Teddy Roosevelt kind of helped broker a peace deal in 1905. I think that'd be an interesting one to do. Sorry, I didn't understand your question in French. Malheureusement, je ne parle pas français. What if the Southern Irish took over the All Island? It's not as simple as that. It's not as it's not necessarily just a geographical thing. All right, I'm going to go now. Have a great stream, John. The roast reaction show. Well, funnily enough, I am about to go too because we've been here now for an hour and 12 minutes. So thank you so much for joining me on my first stream of the channel, which has been so exciting. Also, if anyone recognizes this symbol, 100 points for whoever gets it, because this is a very specific thing that very few people people from a very specific place would get this, and very few else people would. So for anybody watching this in the future, see if you can work out what this is. Okay, guys, thank you so much, and I hope to do more of these in the future. And thank you. Now for the awkward bit where I go to click the end button after saying goodbye. There we go. I have it finished now, so goodbye. See you later. Oh, and there we go. Oh, awkward time. Yeah, there we go. Are you sure that you want to end your stream? Yes, I will end it. Thank you very much. See you later, guys.